Welcome to Insight Builder channel, large language model automators, Python experts, and my dear friends. Deep dive into FB dataset templates in Argilla, natural language inference, sentence similarity, and RAG dataset template Handson. In this discussion, we will try to work with FeedBack dataset, that is generation 2 dataset in Argilla, and we will try to work with templates that are a little bit different from what we have seen in the last couple of videos. So what is the purpose of FeedBack templates? Very simple. Streamlines the annotation and gathering of ratings on the model prediction. Any model which is going to give an output can be right or wrong. Same way, any data point in a data set that is collected from the your domain or from the internet, or whether you handcrafted it, has to be rated in some way. There can be wrong data points, there can be wrong formulations of the text in the data. There could be hundreds of ways the things can be wrong, or it may not be up to the quality. So the purpose of FeedBack templates is kind of a quality check, as well as to improve and direct the further training of the model. So how and what are the types of templates that is available? So let us actually look at that, how these ratings will be used. So there are different kinds of ratings, as I told. Select the prediction with higher ratings, meaning there are certain places where you want to check whether the model inference or the model prediction is having a better output. For an example, you might want to check whether the sentence generated is similar to the input that we provided. So sentence similarity rating can be used for that. And natural language inference, like giving a kind of a sentence which can contradict, or which can entail, or which can support a particular cause or a particular point. So we can actually rate these things using the kind of natural language inference and sentence similarity rating. For that, we can use the FB dataset templates. We can choose the response based on the preference. So the model can generate multiple responses, and based on our preference, or based on the domain's preference, we can select one of the responses. So this can be used in multiple model training scenarios, like supervised fine-tuning, preference modeling, proximal policy optimization, and direct preference optimization. So these things we will see in the next discussion. So in this discussion, we will concentrate on this, selecting the predictions based on the higher ratings, this NLI and SS rating templates we will look into, and reviewing the vector search results. One of the important pipelines that has come up after the introduction of large language models is the RAG pipeline, that is retrieval augmentation. So you give a set of documents to the large language model, and you expect the large language model to provide a better output. So in order for the large language model to give a better output, first of all, it has to select the vectors. Database has to give a good document, right? Or else it's not going to help the large language model. So you can actually review the search results using the retrieved document ratings, and for that also there is a template in FeedBack dataset. Apart from that, there are multimodal templates for multimodal transcription and multimodal classification. If you are using audio dataset, video dataset, or any other kind of dataset, there is an option to work on these things also. I will not be covering this in the current videos. Maybe later, once we have good working requirement, then probably I will cover these things. In this video, we have seen the overview right now, but again, we have seen that how the FeedBack dataset can be used for these things. But how will you use the dataset after the ratings has been created? Like, for an example, you might actually have a natural language inference dataset where the annotators do all the annotation, do the ratings, etc. But how are we going to use the dataset after that? So that's where the dataset FeedBack dataset comes here. So think about this. We have text data input, and the model is generating two different sets of output. So there is generated output 1 and generated output 2. So all these things are put together inside the FeedBack dataset on a template. This can be any kind of template that you saw at the top, and the annotators will work on these outputs, and then they will select the preferred output or the correct output or the highest rating output. It could be any of the processes that we showed above, but finally there will be one of the preferred outputs that will be connected to the text input again, and then the trainers will work and improve the model. So you see that understanding this as an overview is very important before you actually dive into why to use these templates, right? If you directly dive into why and use these templates, it might actually make no sense. Fine, we have given the introduction about the templates. Let's move into the code. So this record and datasets Jupyter notebook will contain all the necessary code that I have been explaining till date, and I have tried to streamline this by creating these kinds of sections. So connecting and setting up Argilla server. So this is where we will go first. You will have to execute this first cell to connect with the Argilla server. So here I am using my Hugging Face hub space server hosting, and I am going to work through that. You can actually change it for your preferences. So the connection is done, and the rest of the cells are not required. If you are going to set it up newly, then yes, the server newly, then you have to go through these things, but this is that I've already done. So you can close this section. Next, we have been discussing about Gen 1 datasets, Gen 2 datasets for text-to-text templates. So those two sections I have closed down here. We are going to dive into this area, Gen 2 feedback dataset templates. So if you open it out, you'll see that the first template that we are going to dive into is called force sentence similarity. Here, one of the arguments that is new is the rating scale. So the sentence similarity template depends on rating whether two sentences are similar or not. So we are going to, if you look at this template, we have to give these things as none because we are not setting up any of the vector metadata property guideline or use the markdown. Any of these things we are not setting it up. Using the markdown, we are actually setting it to true so that our text can be rendered properly. But apart from that, the key aspect is the rating scale. Once you give this rating scale, you can see that a rating question gets created automatically. It has been abstracted. So once you call this for sentence similarity method on feedback dataset, it will create these fields where there will be sentence 1 and sentence 2 fields, and you will have the rating question that is having a name of similarity. So that is how this particular template will work. And then when you're going to create the feedback record, you have to ensure that you are giving two records, sentence 1 and sentence 2. You have to give two sentences, not records. You have to give two sentences inside the fields. It is called as sentence 1 and sentence 2. This should match with this value, with this name. If it doesn't match, then it will throw an error. The feedback record will throw an error telling that the pydantic schema is not matching. Once you are giving sentence 1 and sentence 2, you can talk about, you can actually make the sentences yourself. You might have the predictions as well as the text data input with you, and you might want to create a list of feedback records, and you can give both sentence 1 and sentence 2, or you can actually create a kind of a pipeline where the output from the model is fed into sentence 2, and you can later actually send it to the annotators. So whichever way, you have to use this kind of a strings here, and you have to create the feedback record. Once the record is created, then you are going to add the record to the sentence similarity, so this particular variable. And also keep one thing in mind: after creating this data set, if you directly push to Argilla, if you do this particular method, then you will actually lose connection to this particular variable, because once you push the data set to Argilla, this variable will not have any connection to that data set any longer. So ensure that you are not pushing it after creating the feedback dataset template, but after adding the records, then you have to push it to Argilla. So I'm going to execute this cell, and once I execute it, let me look at the output. It is going to take a second. I believe that the output has been returned, and yeah, dataset successfully pushed to Argilla, and we must have a dataset inside the Argilla server. So let's go to the Argilla server, and yeah, you can see that there is a dataset here. and it is called as DSSim. So let's click on that. Let us see how the annotation works in the DSSim. So you can see there are two sentences, sentences 1 and sentences 2. The same sentence that we provided in the record is present here also, and this is where the actual annotation happens. So there is a sentence similarity rating here. So it starts from 1 and it goes up to 7. So you can actually make it as 10, 100, whatever you want. But this is how the similarity score will be shown to you. So if I say 4 and if I submit, then these two sentences are given a rating of 4 when it comes to similarity. When you take these kinds of annotation and assume that you have some thousands of data sets, and out of that you can give it to the annotators, and you can try to select those sentences. You can ask the annotators to annotate the sentence for similarities. They might annotate from 1 to 7, and after the annotation is complete, you can actually filter out the data set which has similarities more than 6 or 7. So 6 or equal to 7. So in that way, what will happen is you will have a data set that is filtered for perfect similarity, and then you can use that filtered data set for further tuning your model. So that's how the things work. Let's go back to the record, to the notebook, and let's go into the natural language inference. As I already explained, natural language inference talks about entailment, contradiction, and support between two sentences. So it's very similar to sentence similarity, but the idea behind the natural language inference is more from the perspective of argument, perspective of debate, or perspective of creating a cohesive prose, a summary. I should say it's more of an essay, whether a model can write a cohesive essay on a particular topic. So for that, it has to give the entailment, it has to give the support points, it has to give the counter arguments, and a lot of stuff, right? Here we are going to initiate this for natural language inference template, and you can see that here we are going to use labels equal to none. So by default, we are going to say labels equal to none, but when the feedback dataset gets getting created, it will actually create a label question, and it will create this labels: contradiction, entailment, and neutral by default. So you don't need to create it. If you want, you can actually change it here. So you can give a list here, and list that will be very similar to this, and you can actually change it. And apart from that, you will have the fields. It should be premise and hypothesis, and ensure that this is same as the name that this field has. If you change it, then again there will be an error getting thrown. So let's execute this, and the same rules hold good for this data set also. I'm going to execute this, and you will see a new data set, T2T DS T2T. Let's go back and let's go to home. It's going to, it's here. If you click on that, you will see the premise and the hypothesis, and if you scroll down, you will be given 3 labels. So you will be given an option to choose one of them. You can choose any of these things and you can submit. So like this, if you're going to give some hundreds of data sets to the annotators, they will do such kind of selection, and then they will do the submit button. After that, you can take those hundreds of data sets and you can start filtering them, and again you can feed it back to the data set, feed it back to the model for training. Let's go to the last template that I'm going to discuss in this video. That is retrieval argument generation. So here we are going to talk about the vector search retrieval. So if you guys are new to vector search or large language model RAG pipelines, then you take a look at my earlier videos that I have discussed extensively on RAG pipelines and how you can use various vector stores like Pinecone, ChromaDB, VV8. I mean, there are lots of vector stores available in the market. So all these vector stores will provide you a series of documents, and you can control the number of documents that gets returned from the vector store. These documents are nothing but text snippets. These text snippets has to match or be relevant to the query that you are asking it. But most of the time, the vector stores may not actually give output that is relevant. So that's when you will have to work on these kinds of data sets. So you are going to tell how many retrievals you want. So that is the first thing, and you need to again give a rating scale. So here it's a rating scale which is very similar to what you saw in the sentence similarity. If you go back, you will see there is a rating scale. The same kind of rating scale we are using it here also. Just a second. Continuing, so if you scroll down right now and if you execute this particular cell, you'll be creating the feedback data set, and it will be based on this series of fields. So there will be two fields, query and retrieve document, and also it will have two questions. One is the rating question and another is the text question. So you can actually provide the response also in text. The annotators can provide the response that telling whether this particular retrieval is holding good or bad. So you can execute this and let it complete the execution. And let us give it a second, and yeah, it's done. Let's go to home, and you will see that ds_rag. If you click on that, you will see the query and the retrieve document. So this retrieve document can be 1 or it can be 10 or many. So it depends on how much ever you want, and then you will start rating it. And here we are actually having only one retrieval document, but if you are going to have multiple retrieval documents, each will have its own rating. So you can click on the rating. You can talk about how helpful the above retrieved document is. So the annotator will provide these two things and he will hit submit, or he or she will hit submit. And once that submission is done, and then you can start using that retrieved document along with the question for further working with your vector stores and also working with your model. So in this discussion we have seen the basics of how you will use the templates that you have seen in templates that are available in feedback dataset, that is Gen 2 feedback dataset. We saw how the templates can what is the purpose of the templates. We saw various templates that are present and what kind of actions or ratings it can provide. We reviewed all these options that is shown here, and then we also discussed how we can use the rated dataset in our next step of our pipeline, that is to train the model. And then we reviewed the three options, three templates, that is retrieved document rating template, that is RAG template, sentence similarity template, and NLI template. So I believe that you have got some good information regarding the Argilla feedback dataset in this video. So do leave a like and share your comments in the comment section. The code will be provided to you in the description, so take a look at that. You can experiment with the code. Do subscribe to my channel for further updates on similar kind of videos. I'll be posting the next video on the remaining templates in the FB datasets. With that said, I would like to leave the video with 4 words, that is practice, 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 practice. See you guys. Have a great time.